All right, so we will continue with the last 3 stories for this evening. And let's see, we did that one. Okay. So our 4th story, the 250 word notwithstanding, is Jump. And Jump was written by Rhonda Foote. And I have the story, I just don't have all the bios. So we try to be organized, but I am not inherently so. There we go. Rhonda is a Northern New York dance studio director who continues her pursuit of writing in her spare time. Jump is loosely based on her childhood memories of a Northern New York small mill town and the blizzard of '77. Rhonda has won numerous awards for her poetry, short stories, and has a self-published book, Blaming Grace, which is available on Amazon. Her story will be read by Lori Atkinson. Joe, do you want to introduce your book? I mean, I could do it, but
Lori was my high school English teacher in drama and public speaking, but also has been a high school English teacher since 1990, which requires doing voice work daily. She also MCs all prep rallies, Copenhagen Cup annual competition, talent shows, and donkey basketball. That was fun. She was a personality for CIZ FM for a few years in the late 90s. She also narrates all the Copenhagen Teachers Union videos as well as some NICET presentations. It has been a long-standing dream to return to radio to do commercial work when and if she ever retires. Probably the best references she has are her 2 grandchildren, who have her voice captured in recorded books. There we go, that's what I have there. So, come on up.
yeah, one of the greatest things is always seeing your students. So here we go. Growing up in a mill town in northern New York in the early 70s was a child's dream. The river fed the trees fed the mill fed the workers and the loggers, and they in turn fed their families. The community was tight, tough, and self-sufficient. She knew the seasons by heart. In spring, the kids waited for school days to turn into summer break. There were spring concerts and festivals. Clothes hung from the lines in the yard and captured the fresh air. She loved to sniff the clothes as she helped Mom take them down from the line and fold them to be placed neatly in drawers. After school, everyone met for games of baseball and kick the can. She was always picked last. Even Rita was faster than she was. If she was lucky enough to connect bat with ball and watch it soar a small way in the sky or roll towards her brother's glove, she was never fast enough to make it to first base. In the field, she picked daisies or kicked rocks, hoping no ball came in her direction. Later, during Kick the Can, she would run for safety as fast as her legs could take her. She was almost safe. Almost. Jump! Rita screamed. She jumped for base. Too late. Tagged out. Again. She didn't mind, really. She just loved playing with her friends and her brothers. But still, it would be nice to make it to safety just once. Summer was tubing down the river with friends. No helmet or life jacket. Just holding on for dear life when the rapids met the tire and your dangling suntan legs. The ride ended at the swimming hole where the kids walked to the dam and jumped from the steel bridge. She was about 5 on her first day. She and Rita climbed to the top of the cool, smooth steel arch and stared down at her older brothers. The boys slapped the water with excitement and made chicken clucking noises in their sky-high direction. Jump! They shouted at the girls. She grabbed Rita's hand and squeezed. "Jump!" she shouted. And they did. Her toes tingled when they broke through the water. She plunged towards the bottom, and then instinctively, she propelled her arms in helicopter movement until her face peeked from the river. The sun felt warm, and her smile was big. Rita's sun-brown face popped up next to hers, and they screeched with joy. Her brothers splashed them, and they all swam to shore. It was a good day to be a girl. In the early autumn, the neighborhood kids spent their days walking the railroad tracks. Trains were used to move more logs from their small town to any big city. They walked until they felt like stopping, and then sat on the rails and pulled squished and soggy sandwiches in plastic baggies from their pockets. Hers was just mustard and bread, but she ate it with relish. It may as well have been a gourmet sandwich. It tasted so good. Chatter ceased as sandwiches were inhaled, and they found a small creek or wandered into someone's backyard for a swig from the hose, and then they returned to the tracks. Their favorite fall game was not football. It was the dare to see who would stay on the tracks the longest when they heard the train coming game. She never won. Neither did Rita. They both knew that their legs were not as long or strong as her big brothers or their friends. As the only girls, they were always first to leave the tracks. Sometimes, one of the kids would stay until they could hear the engineer swearing at them, and then they would jump for their life and roll into the brush on the other side of the tracks. Everyone would be yelling, "Jump!" in a strange mix of excitement and fear when the boy would finally dive for safety. She loved all of the seasons, but winter was her favorite. When the snow fell and the town grew quiet, she loved reading in her room or shoveling the walkway in her red rubber boots and matching mittens. On Sunday nights, Mom let them watch A My World of Disney and drink hot chocolate with mini marshmallows. Oh, she loved winter. The loading docks at the mill were great for sliding off building gigantic forts under Mom and Dad. Or building gigantic forts under. Mom and Dad always warned them to stay out of the mill parking lot. The gigantic yellow snowplow often zoomed around the corner of the lot, spilling snow and pushing banks back with abandon. To the kids, it was just another game. Hear the plow? Jump! Run! Get out of there! Mom and Dad never had to know. In the fall of 1976, she was excited to start 5th grade. Mom was expecting another baby, and she wished so badly for a little sister, but didn't get her hopes up. Dad made it clear he wasn't too pleased about another mouth to feed, and said it better be at least a boy. Dad always said boys were better. They could hunt and fish and bring food to the table. They could get jobs at the mill as soon as they turned 16. Mom pointed out that all their only daughter brought them, Mom pointed out all that their only daughter brought them, and told Dad how much help she was around the house with laundry and babysitting. Dad just grunted. She knew Dad just didn't understand her. It was okay. She loved him anyway. That fall, there were layoffs at the mill. Dad was still working, but was grouchy all the time. Her older brothers took odd jobs and helped out. She knew Mom was worried about Dad getting laid off. If the union voted to strike, they would all face a long winter with no money coming in. At night, she heard loud, angry whispers coming from her parents' room. She pulled the covers over her head and closed her eyes tight. The winter of '77 brought more excitement than the mill strike. The blizzard of 77 was immense. Snow fell from the sky for days. Heavy, wet snow. Difficult to move and impossible to find a place to put it. The snow piled around the windows of the house and they gave up shoveling. She read books, wrote in her notebook, and called Rita to talk for hours. Finally, after a week of snow, it stopped. The air was bright and cold and everything outside snapped. Tree limbs, icy footsteps. Inside, Dad snapped. We were too loud. We were too quiet. The house wasn't clean enough. I asked Mom if I could go outside and meet Rita for a walk. She said to ask Dad. Dad said I could go for a little while, but I had to be back to help make dinner. I kissed my new baby brother on the forehead and layered on my clothes. I had called Rita and we agreed to meet halfway between our houses by the bridge. As I went out the door, Dad yelled, "Stay away from the mill lot!" My answer was a hurriedly shut door as I leapt down the snow-covered walkway. Rita and I hugged at the bridge. It seemed we had not been together in years. School had been canceled all week because of the snow. We decided to sneak behind the mill and build a small fort on the loading dock. Fingers tingling and cold and toes numb in our boots, we packed the snow into an igloo and burrowed inside. We sucked ice from our mittens and talked about all the things. Eventually, we decided to check our ESP powers and predict the color of the cars that drove by. Since the mill was closed and most people were not working, we quickly decided that we wouldn't be testing our powers after all. We leaned on opposite sides of the snow fort and our boots touched sole to sole in the middle. It was quiet. We were together, and it was good. She wasn't sure if she felt or heard the snowplow first, but suddenly it was upon her. There was a scraping sound that she felt inside her belly, and then white, all white. She couldn't see Rita. She couldn't see her boots. Something hurt badly, but she couldn't even figure out if it was her leg or her hip or her stomach. She heard the plow leave as quickly as it had come. She thought she heard Rita crying. She wanted to cry but did not find enough air to let out a sob. And then everything was very, very quiet. Was it moments? Hours? She was not sure, but she heard voices calling her name and her brain screamed, "Here I am! Here! I'm here!" There was digging and more yelling, and then right in front of her tiny freckled frozen face, a hand broke through, and the hand made a bigger hole, and then her father's bearded face appeared. He stared at her. She tried to call for him. He saw her, and very, very quietly he whispered, "I told you to stay away from the mill lot." And then, to her horror, he took his gloved hand, touched her cheek, and smiled. She couldn't free her hands to reach out. She couldn't find her voice. And just as quickly as Dad had appeared, he disappeared. She saw his hand replace the snow. She heard his footsteps as he walked away. And then she heard his voice as he yelled to the others, "No one in this pile. Just keep looking." She drifted off, fell away from her pain and her heartbreak, and she stopped dreaming and hoping. No one was coming. The last thing she remembered was seeing Rita off in the distance, waving her mittened hand in a big greeting. "Jump!" Rita yelled, and she did. The weekly journal bumped the big storm from the front page and replaced the headline with, "2 local 10-year-old girls perish in a freak accident." The girls' school pictures were placed under the headline, and the article recounted how they had met for a play date and must have built a fort off from the back loading dock of the paper mill. The poor snowplow driver was said to be an absolute mess and in shock, as he himself had a little girl that age. The last paragraph of the article quoted her dad. "We interviewed one of the girl's fathers as he held his newborn son. I told her to stay away from the mill, he said, as tears rolled down his weather-worn cheeks. I've lost my only daughter now, my only girl. Ever since we moved here, I have told my supervisor there should be warning signs or a fence to keep our kids out of here. Everyone knew it wasn't safe for our kids. In conclusion, the newspaper article noted that at least one of the families had sought legal representation and would be suing the paper mill over the loss of their child.
Written by Dick Monroe. Dick Monroe is a veteran North Country writer and storyteller. When not busy chasing new life adventures, Dick